Hello and welcome. Nice to see everyone here. This is Michael Lambie from Creator IQ here with my guests. We're going to have a brief moment to pause here to let a couple more people trickle in before we kick things off. So, in the spirit of engagement interaction, I'm going to share a moment of gratitude I experienced today, as some of you might be in colder environments than others. And I would encourage you to share a moment of gratitude in the chat. Doesn't have to be about measurement or work. It could be about anything, but throw something in there. Maybe if we see something fun, we'll mention it. And for me today, I live in a very cold climate. And when I come to WeWork, and also they're not a sponsor, I just work there, out of there. While my floor might be heated to about 70 degrees, when I walk into the bathroom, it is heated to about 80 degrees. So it's kind of like my first move after I walk into the building. I just go into the bathroom and take a deep breath and enjoy the sauna-like atmosphere that WeWork has provided for me. And it's kind of silly, but it's like the little things that make me feel good. So if you have any moment of gratitude, feel free to put that in the session, in the chat. But I think we're about 2 minutes past, so we'll get into it. So first off, I'd just like to say my name's Michael Lambie. I've been with Creator IQ for about 11 years and change, and I do measurement and insights here. I'll introduce my guests here. We're lucky to have, from what I would say is the brand side growth leader, we have Vasilika Poneros. She's one of those rare digital leaders who's actually operated every lever that influences creator performance, e-com, paid media, retention, influencer, social, and growth. She's scaled DTC revenue, triple digits, rebuilt teams, fixed workflows, and proven return on spend at a level that most brands aspire to. We're also so lucky to have Dante Mears with us, who's an agency strategy powerhouse, and he represents the other side of our sophistication curve. He's built influencer programs for Pepsi, Depop, Vayner, and now at Weber Shandwick, where he leads influencer strategy in the central region. And he's seen measurement evolve from the early days of creator campaigns to the present moment, where creators now outperform brand-led content across every metric. And before I ask our panelists a little bit about themselves, I just want to give you, the audience, an idea of what we're talking about today. We're talking about the evolving metrics that define success in creator programs, how to effectively track performance across campaigns and campaign types according to your different goals, understanding that we all come from different companies and different business maturity models and different markets, and it's not always a one-size-fits-all approach in measurement. From things like shifting from follower accounts to indicators of true brand fit and impact, and to talk about competitive benchmarking, the role of AI in transforming measurement and reporting, and the future. So to kick things off, I want to say to anyone who's participating here as a viewer, feel free to ask questions in the chat. We will try to save some time at the end for questions. So you can ask general questions or you can ask specific questions to our panelists. And so I'll start with Vasilika, and I might ask if you can briefly tell us about your career journey and how the role of measurement has changed over that trajectory.
For sure. Well, hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. Thank you, Michael and Dante, for having me. My career actually started more specifically within the e-commerce realm. So really bottom of the funnel, direct to consumer. I've spent the last 10 years specifically within the beauty industry, optimizing digital programs from anywhere from paid ads, direct to consumer, influencer programs, social programs, etc. So at this point in my career, as the VP of Digital and E-commerce at Ellis Brooklyn, a fragrance brand, if you guys aren't familiar with it. My role really encompasses the full funnel of digital. So really every consumer point interaction.
That's wonderful. And Dante, I might switch that over to you to ask you the same thing, just to restate the question. If you can tell us a little bit about your career journey and how the role of measurement has been involved and evolved over time as you've seen it.
Yeah, thank you again for having me. I've been in the influencer space for I think near 15 years, and I've seen a variety of different types of programs and executions at all different sizes of brands. I've been at agencies, at influencer platforms, on the brand side in-house, and there's been a lot of evolution. I would say obviously early on, it was very surface level, looking at follower counts as a proxy of, are people popular? Engagement rate, then kind of developed. By the time, I started moving into, my career most recently, before I was at Weber, I was at Depop. They really believed in similar to Basilica, like the full funnel nature of influencer. And so we were very performance driven. We were, measuring GMV and looking at repeat purchase, eventually evolving into multi-touch attribution. And now at Weber, I'm working with, a lot more CPG clients, big brands, Fortune 100 brands that are, sold in big box retailers, where attribution can be a little bit of a challenge. And so we're trying to understand what are the brand health metrics that we can, study, and what are the leading indicators that are, giving us insight whether or not the work that we're doing is being successful. So it has evolved a lot. And what I've seen most is it's really about the brands that are taking it serious, understanding that influencer is a channel that deserves that rigor. And when you have a partner like that and a brand that you get to work on like that, it's really exciting where you can take measurement.
I love that. And Dante, 15 years. And look, you still have the youth and charisma of a fresh-faced kid out of college.
I appreciate that.
When other people are showing the cracks of war as grizzled veterans. So I love the energy level here from both of you. So I'm excited to be on a call. So let's say, and Dante, let's continue on what you were talking about with the evolution of the metrics and what you were saying over the last 15 years. But today, what would you say some of the more useful North Star KPIs that you're using for creator programs, and how you're using them across different platforms?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on, of course, the objective of the program and what we're really looking to achieve. And, for some of our clients, they are, very much top of funnel and really trying to make earned impact and create news and headlines and earn attention. And then we have other, clients that are more, direct to consumer and looking to make, real impact at cart. So I think, it definitely depends on the program, which KPIs we're measuring for. But, when it even comes down to how we identify influencers, we're taking measurement very, serious. We're, establishing benchmarks from all of our historical campaigns to understand what categories of influence, what tier of influencer, what different topics of conversation are trending right now and growing. We have to measure all of those things to identify even which partner makes sense for us to work with. And that's before you're actually, developing the program and the consumer engagement that's going to lead to results. So, there are a ton of metrics that are just in the identification phase. In the kind of the campaign measurement phase, we're seeing a lot of purchase intent right now and a lot of sentiment. And AI is also really helping us accelerate how we're measuring that across every influencer piece of content.
That is awesome to hear. So it sounds like with a lot of different clients as an agency, you have to represent a lot of different phases. So you're certainly talking about the funnel and different parts of the funnel that relate to different clients, and that there's different metrics for different phases, which is, I think, one of the key things here. Basilica, can I ask you, representing a single brand, how would you answer the same question in terms of what kind of North Star KPIs you use for your creator programs and how you use them across the platforms?
Yeah, of course. I think for us, especially a smaller brand that's really in growth mode, we've really focused a lot on those top of funnel North Star metrics in order to really even optimize our bottom of the funnel. Because we felt like we got to broaden our top of funnel, we have to broaden our reach, we have to increase our impressions, etc., across the board. So working using those KPIs, broadening that has also helped us improve actually our bottom of the funnel. So that's been a really important strategy that we've worked on as a team. The team's been great on that this year. Just, more creators in the program. How many impressions are we going to get? What's our overall EMV? And going from there.
Very cool. Thanks for that. And it's important, right? You can't get people down the bottom of the funnel if no one's coming at the top, right? So I think the funnel is a great way to put this into context for everyone here, because it seems like probably most of our guests here have a different funnel of their own, and they're just trying to fill it up and get people moving down the pipeline. So Basilica, I'm going to ask you about less relevant metrics, thinking about the evolution of the way that metrics have changed and business models have changed. Is there a metric that you ever hear about where you're just like, okay, we don't need to talk about this metric anymore, it's not as relevant? Like, if you could, I would say, it's like, is there a metric that you would want to kill or just wipe off
I mean, I honestly, at this point, I'm sort of like that with follower count. And I know that's, crazy, but I feel like if I can make up a metric, I'd prefer to create a metric that was more like virality rate. Because we're seeing so much on on all of these platforms where people, it doesn't really matter what their followers are, but then you can see that they have tons of views, tons of likes. I wish I could make my own metric that was not really looking at the follower count, but looking on how often are they able to engage outside their own community. Because all of these platforms now have, a way for these creators to reach people outside of who, already follows them.
No, that's great. I love that. Definitely feel that way about followers. And I loved your idea of creating a new metric. So maybe by the end of this discussion, we can create some new power metrics. Dante, I'll ask you the same thing. Is there a metric that you'd want to destroy?
Well, if I could just build quickly on Basilica's metric, I completely agree and love that as well. Like, we're finding so much of the content that our creators are producing are not really even digested by their followers. Like maybe 20% on TikTok. Like, I think that's probably roughly the average that we see a lot is actually, based of that core, followership, and everything else is from the creators. So it's really about like, are you capitalizing on the moment with the right creator that is going viral and can demand attention that's outsized? That is a harder metric to try to unpack. So I similarly, like, I vote for that metric. Excuse me. I vote for that metric if you can make that happen. I think, I think engagement rate is another one that I think only tells one side of the story. I think that also needs to be, much more nuanced. I when we reach out to creators, when we get their first party, data access, we're really interested in like view through rate, watch time, share rate, like those things, those actions that are showing that, consumers are engaging in that content, spending more time with the content and digesting the message, and then sharing that with their fans. I think just, most engagement rates that are only focused on likes and comments, to me, don't capture the story.
No, yeah, that's pretty profound. Thinking about too some of the changes that we've seen in social media as a consumer tool, and looking at how the algorithms have changed, right? Like, to Basilica's point, followers is kind of moot if your content's not even getting distributed to your followers, but it's just going to whoever they can get the attention from. And to Dante's point, engagements are, we have likes and comments that have been there for years, but when we're going to do some of the more advanced metrics like the view throughs, especially in an age where a decent amount of the social platforms have taken what we've traditionally thought of as a view through or a click or view through rate that we see in paid, and now they've kind of changed them to be impressions, where a millisecond counts as a view now. It really puts that focus on what are these core attention metrics and how do I get those, and how do we continue to measure those and break through. So I do like that. And I just say, so we have a couple slides here too. I forgot to gloss over that. This is a little from our marketing survey, the state of creator marketing. You can kind of follow along here. This is just a survey to all sorts of industry leaders across the Creator IQ verse. And you can see at the top there, return on spend is a big one. Impressions is still big, engagements. But I want to ask too, does anyone have any other metrics that they want to kill? Put them in the chat. Or if anyone, what do you think of the take? Some people like engagement rate. I agree. There's a lot of room for it to improve. So is that a hot take? How do you feel on that? I really liked, I like coming out against engagement rate as well. We're going to move along here. And as Dante alluded to, the kind of the different obstacles and things that we're going to face in the future. So we'll keep this over with Dante. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you still see when it comes to measuring creator performance? And this could be from your clients or other internal stakeholders, or maybe people out, that sit outside of social media marketing, more traditional media. But just thinking about biggest misconceptions that you still see.
I could jump in on that. I think, especially for clients that are, newer to the space, or still, maybe in year 1, year 2 of their sophistication with influencer, it's that they're expecting quicker hits. They're expecting, immediate results. And I think just like if you are rolling out, an SEO strategy, or you are trying to optimize your, branded search terms, this takes a while to really get to unlock the flywheel aspect that makes so many brands successful with influencer. And so, it is not, and even though this is social media content that, maybe, lifestyle influencers are creating, it doesn't mean that lacks sophistication in what you can do with the channel and how you can measure the impact. And so I think, people often, when I ask questions around, hey, could we try to do like a holdout test in a certain product or a market to look at incrementality, they're confused why like their influencer marketing, lead would ask that kind of question. And they're like, oh, are we not just going to get, the likes and comments, the engagement rates back? So I think, we're trying to push our clients to evolve their thinking on like what can be done with it. Because I think they're still looking at it, from a very nascent kind of perspective. Michael, I think I lost your audio.
You're right. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, there was someone blasting some loud music in my one of my neighbors here, so bear with me. But thank you. Yeah, great response. Thanks for fielding that. And Vasilika, I might take that back to you as well, thinking about whether it's biggest misconceptions or just thinking about how you ensure your measurement framework is reflecting the goals on specific campaign KPIs.
Yeah, completely. And just to touch on one thing too that Dante said, I completely agree with the sort of compounded approach of the influencer strategy. We can't look at, one of these things in a silo. And so many things within it take so much time. So I really love that you said that, and completely agreed that these take time. And for misconceptions, I think really the biggest thing is, all creators and all campaigns need to be looked at with the same KPIs. Like, I'm a big believer in segmentation of programs, segmenter across the board for, D2C and e-com, but our creator programs need to reflect the same, no matter the size of your creator programs. We can't be looking at somebody we know who's going to be a converter versus somebody, top of funnel, middle of funnel, and attribute the same KPIs. If we can segment our campaigns, attribute and tie specific goals to each of them, teams can then go and really chase into those goals and be more agile. And so I know that's something I'm working on with our teams all the time. What's 1 or 2 goals, 1 or 2 KPIs? Let's chase into it. If it's not working, how do we pivot our strategy? And so just making sure each of those segments have those core KPIs tied to them so we can chase back.
Wonderful. That makes a lot of sense. It's endearing to hear. So I want to just shout out to the chat here on our metrics killing support. And so a couple people have agreed on engagement rate, thinking that's become more of a vanity metric these days. And there's probably some, it's not mentioned in the chat, but maybe there's some spam comments and spam stuff too that's a little harder to tell. And then another person writes about earned media value, understanding that it wasn't built for influencer marketing and the efforts to retrofit influencer leads into black box formulas. And I would say as far as our earned media value at Creator IQ, we, if you have more questions about that, we are trying to unblack box it, understanding that we want to be less proprietary methodology, more proprietary data that we have. We have 10 years of data. So didn't mean to turn that into a commercial, Bill, but I totally understand where you're coming from, and you're right. So
could I just build on that?
Yeah.
I actually think that that's something I similarly would kill, like out of the box EMV. I struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to really, and this is, I think, one of the benefits of having a direct to consumer brand and being able to really understand your full funnel impact, because you may be able to evolve EMV to be a metric that is suitable for your brand. And I know Creator IQ, you do allow you to customize those, not to try to plug your tool as well, but like, I think a lot of people haven't done the research of how to get to what that equivalent value is for them. And that may look different if you are a big, CPG brand versus if you're, selling direct to consumer. And you need to evolve that for you. So I think that's another misconception, is that EMV is equal across the board. It should be a custom metric that only works for you. Yeah,
no, I appreciate that. Yeah, and then it's nice we have some chatter here, so I appreciate everyone who's participating in that. And then there's a note about our SMV, our social media value, which is completely customizable. It represents more the real world metrics and dynamics of the cost to transact in different markets, the supply and demand economics of the available attention on those platforms. So we won't spend too much more time on the media values here, but again, I like that there's topic about it. And to Dante's point, it's something that you need to align on internally of how you are measuring these things. It should be a very personal thing on how you measure media value, especially if you're not in an e-com space where you have access to say, like, we know how much revenue each creator is driving. And also I wanted to touch on that point, something that Vasilika mentioned, which I'd be curious for Dante's perspective as well, is the idea that different creators have different roles in the funnel. Some are great at driving awareness. Some are better at driving engagements or clicks. And Dante, is that something you've seen with your clients at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we take completely different approaches to how we identify influencers, or maybe the tiering strategy, the numbers, the way we, leverage call to actions, based on what the program needs are. So yeah, if we're looking to drive excitement and engagement with a new, product, like, we're thinking about how we're leveraging TikTok shop creators, and not TikTok creators that can drive to a shop link, but TikTok shop creators that are known for they're essentially, the modern QVC. They make recommendations and people want to buy from them. It's true affiliate marketing. So that looks a lot different than when we're trying to, build a creative and cultural campaign around maybe one particular talent or a couple talent. And that helps us carry a message that, resonates with the broad, consumer. So it's critical for us to, unpack that before we even identify the right influencer.
I love that. And Vasilika, was there anything you wanted to add on that, or?
No, I just completely agree with, TikTok shop creators are so different. I mean, now when you look at those creators and they generate a ton of GMV, you'll look and they'll have, low follower counts or, a lot lower of the standard KPIs that we were, historically looking at to see if this is, a good person for a program. But they may be able to go and sell hundreds of thousands of dollars through TikTok Shop. So it does bring a new, KPI to chase within here too.
Oh, absolutely. And that's great. So I think, when we think about all this measurement and we're thinking about what standards do we hold ourselves to, a lot of places will look for benchmarks. Now, benchmarks aren't always widely available or published on specific brands or industries or markets. I would say I will do a little plug to the Creator IQ marketing benchmarks study, which is benchmarking a number of different metrics across brands and different markets across the America or across the globe. And it's just a little starting point just to get some ideas at a brand level, how much, across my program, what KPIs are our creators hitting? What are we hitting as a brand? So, and I might see, maybe I can pop a link to that in chat too. And if anyone wants to take a look, but let's say we don't have benchmarks for our industry or for our market. Where do you start with benchmarks? What are you benchmarking? Is it a campaign? Is it a creator? Is it a post? Is it a product or brand level? And then how do you measure against them? Vasilka, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, I'll touch on competitor data.
Sure. Okay? Yeah, please.
Well, I think for us, in an evolving industry, especially like within fragrance that I know is rapidly growing, for us, the competitive benchmarks have been so useful. Especially, I'm in there every single month when there's new rollouts. I need to see, obviously our own gains, but I love seeing gains from other people that are doing a really good job. We go in there, we drill down, we try to figure out what's moving the needle for them, and really unpack it as much as possible to see, what's potentially different in their program from our program. Are there certain platforms that they're leveraging that we're not leveraging? Are they leaning higher in, micros than we are? Whatever it is, we always drill down whenever we see significant gains. And I actually love the Creator IQ platform for that, because I feel like we can just unlock all of these, gaps that we couldn't identify by only looking at our own data.
No, that's very useful to hear. And Dante, understanding that you have multiple brands, keeping a book of custom benchmarks for both your brands and their competitors seems like a little bit, a daunting task anyway. But can you give us your perspective on benchmarking?
Yeah, I mean, benchmarking is critical to, how, again, we're even, setting up in the campaign from the planning phases, so we can deliver what we expect to achieve with our clients before we're really executing on the program tacticals. So we collect data from, every influencer that we work with across like our network. And so that is thousands of influencers in any given year, tens of thousands of pieces of content. And we are analyzing them across a lot of the, metrics that we've mentioned today. So like view rate, reach rate, view through, engagement rate, we still, do measure and benchmark. And then we break that down into our own categorization, influencer size, all of those elements. And we apply some, additional things like what are custom programs or custom attributes of the programs that like we might want to track. So, maybe it is like the stage of the funnel, or, it is like a new, product launch. So we try to keep those as additional dimensions. So when we have, a lot of data that we're looking at, it is very, robust. But we also, actually have hired a dedicated, influencer lead for our analytics team. So we now have someone that's like not only like, on the analytics team and is like thinking about how we're, measuring all of our campaign, efficacy. We also have someone who is like specialized in our particular, channel. That's really helped us evolve. But we take, a lot of the same, the benchmark data that we can get from, Creator IQ. We're comparing that to see how we're performing against industry benchmarks to be able to then build things that are slightly custom for our agency, and then double click into, some of our portfolios. So our benchmarks for Kellanova look a lot different than our benchmarks for, a Kenvue or a Samsung.
Cool. That's great to hear. And there are a lot of approaches there. And are these conversations you actually have with clients, or are they large conversations, or does it end up being kind of like bullets on a slide, or how are these kind of discussed both with clients and then the silicon we get to you with internally?
Yeah, evolution based on, how sophisticated that client is. Some of our clients, like, I'm having conversations, very advanced conversations with their measurement teams. We're figuring out how we're going to be like, improving their overall media taxonomy so that they can more, more efficiently measure the impact that influencer has as a channel, across all different peso channels, and be able to read that in like an MMM. That requires organizational like level alignment, that this is something that you're really focused on and you're investing in. And then we have other clients that are, very happy, and we're happy to do that as well. They're happy with, out of the box kind of, reporting, and one sheets and that kind of data, which is really helpful, especially for those clients that are still, dipping their toe in the space. So they at least can see the baseline that we can cover. And then we, dangle the like, look at how advanced we can go.
That's good. I bet you sound very smart when you talk about this.
I try.
Vasilika, would you say anything internally? Like, is benchmarks a topic of conversation around the, the marketing leadership calls, or where does that fit in?
For sure. Definitely more on like a monthly basis, but even, weekly, daily, like I said, we try to just chase in. So we're always looking to see how daily performance is really, how it's trending across our benchmarks, to see how can we move the needle quickly.
Cool. Very nice. I think something else that was mentioned here, that maybe we're talking about measurement. We think, oh, it's all about the numbers and the benchmarks and the KPIs and delivering. But this is a little bit off script, but I think it's not necessarily the most sexy side of measurement, as glamorous as measurement can be. But taxonomy and governance, understanding, what you put into your data and your programs is what is able to be extracted. So when we think about how we're categorizing content, creators, campaigns, tactics, and understanding, like, is there a discipline of saying, when we start a campaign, if we start doing 100 campaigns across, 10 different teams over the course of a year, is everyone using the same measurement strategy, or at least the guardrails of how to measure it and what they'll be expected to show for it? And, are they setting up things like taxonomy and governance to tag content, tag creators? Would either of you like to take that one?
Yeah, I would say measurement is not like a technical challenge. It's a political challenge. And that's like what I've really found is it can be very challenging to, really drive adoption, of the standards that you need in order to be able to cleanly report on the impact. So, we found, and as a leader trying to standardize measurement across, not only what works for one client, but across, an entire region, and then how that's laddering up across like our entire agency. There's a lot of stakeholders that you need to, get involved. And then it requires the hard work of the day in, day out, reinforcing the practice with the teams of, okay, this is how you effectively track link clicks. You have to really make sure you're training that practice into your new recruits. And so it becomes secondhand nature, but the adoption is the hardest part of the game.
Yeah. And Vasilka, would you want to add anything to that?
No, just completely agreeing with Dante on that. I mean, the cleaner your program is, the cleaner the back end, obviously the cleaner your data. I always look at programs as if they're, SEO, even though it's your own program. So how are you naming things? How are you tagging things, etc. But at the end of the day, the adoption of those strategies is always the hardest part, and what you have to, follow through with your teams so that what you're reporting on is as clean as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to ask the audience here, does measurement or reporting on your activities in social marketing, creator marketing, do you feel it could be at all political? Do you have, are there silos within an organization that make it harder to tell, established other departments in marketing that operate on more traditional media channels? And how they may or may not relate to creator and social. And just be curious just to see if anyone else has any of these types of political challenges and how they communicate their findings across the board. So thinking about the elephant in the room, the AI and the future of measurement and insights and intelligence and all the things. It might be that next year when we do this panel, I'll just be a little generative AI icon or paperclip that talks to you and moderates the panel, in which case AI will have won. But hopefully there's better use cases for AI in that. So, thinking about whatever you're allowed to talk about openly, understanding that some of this might be a little proprietary, I'd be curious, Vasilka, if, kind of what are the talks about AI and, kind of new technology?
Yeah, I think, for us and me always as a digital marketer, I'm a test and learner. So if anything's new, want to test it. If we can be more efficient, want to test it. AI for creator analytics, there's things I'm excited about, potentially like predictive insights. Obviously, a lot of creator programs are, gambles, there's big investments. So would love to see more in that. But at the end of the day, too, I do think the human element is always important and will always be so important with creator programs. I think, our influencer teams are great at, identifying emerging creators, have that creative intuition, all of that. So I really think, yes, test it, see how we can make ourselves better, but not fully rely on it is how I sort of see it evolving.
That's great. So you're saying you're not using it today to do your outreach and run your campaigns and to, communicate and negotiate contracts?
I will share. No, I will not answer. Decline.
Yeah, no, of course. That was a bit of a baiting, snarky question. But Dante, I'd be curious to hear your take here.
Yeah, I mean, we're embracing AI as much as possible, and really looking at everywhere across our campaign process. Are there ways that we can optimize with AI and with the use of like agentic workflows? We had a really large partnership that we announced with Google around Gemini to launch an AI tool called Halo for our entire agency. That's really been the backbone of a lot of our different tests and pilots and ways that we're leveraging the technology. So we're using AI in kind of brand safety checks and understanding the topics of conversations, using it for social listening aspects, bubbling up what's really relevant for our consumer right now. From a measurement standpoint, that's an area where I would say probably 60 to 70% of our focus with AI is really concentrated. So we're using that to look at sentiment classification, the content quality analysis from the comments and purchase intent. We're using AI in order to tag content, to understand different, patterns within the content and what is driving creative effectiveness. That can allow us to kind of build predictive models on the types of contents, or again, like those key attributes that you need in content if you're trying to tell an emotional story, or if you're trying to tell like a salesmanship story. So that kind of tagging and categorization at scale is really where we're leveraging AI right now. So we're hoping all of that can help us, develop insights that our team, then can take and easily, look up, really great campaigns that worked well, and what were the attributes that function for that campaign that we could borrow for this new campaign. So we're still trying to keep the human element in the engagement process and building the relationships with the creators and briefing them, and outreach, but really leveraging it in understanding what content and which creators could work best to lead our campaign to success.
Yeah, that's great. Some really good additional context there. And I'd say one thing that kind of maps on what you were saying here with Creator IQ, one of our innovations team has been working on brand safety and largely relying on custom built models just to, find that language and those innuendos, doing a multimodal approach. For so long, we didn't really have much access to understanding what is in the video, what's in the audio, unless we had a team of humans to go and watch it. And now we're able to kind of get past some of these limitations, which is interesting. And thinking about comment analysis and that type of reaction gives us a whole new avenue to explore. So we are at 5 minutes left. So we're going to just do a last question. And then if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat right now. And we can try to address those before we bounce. But the last one is just, looking ahead, 2026 on the horizon. And I would just say, is there anything new that you're testing in 2026? And just in a two-parter, testing anything new, and any advice you'd give to teams building a future-ready measurement framework. And do either of you care to go first on this?
Basilica, do you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. Sounds great. Testing anything new, my answer to this is always, anything that rolls out, want to test it. So we will be continuously testing. And then I think just my advice is being adaptable and flexible. I think at the end of the day, you have to see what KPIs work for you, but also everything's changing so quickly. So really the willingness to shift is, I think, the most important thing for any of your teams to, be flexible.
Cool. Dante?
Same. I feel like every campaign is a test in some regard. No playbook is ever solidified. I think, we are also really testing a couple different tools and approaches around brand lift studies, and really understanding, some more of these, kind of traditional measures of awareness and perception, and how we're moving consumers down the consideration aspect of the funnel. And so that has become much more of a conversation with a lot of our brands, especially again at Weber, we're traditionally a PR company. Our consumer affairs clients that really focus heavily on that aspect of the story, and especially when they're trying to sell these programs through. So that's really critical. Advice for teams kind of building for the future. I would say, back to even that taxonomy question, really making sure that you have a set of values around your measurement approach. What is critical to you? Even as Basilica mentioned, what are the couple North Star KPIs that really matter for your brand? And yes, be building sophistication and add more layers and look at as many data points as possible. But approach it through a value system. So one of the things that we focus a lot on is our developing benchmarks and deliverable based pricing. So I know that sounds like, in the weeds. We just want to make sure we always understand how much the cost of one individual post is with an influencer, so that when we're tracking performance, we're able to look at CPMs and CPVs and CPEs and ROAS that's like a principle that we have relied on, and that has really informed how we think about integrating different tools to unlock that measurement capability.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. And I would say is those are great information, great advice here for the future. We covered a lot here, and Dante, thanks for bringing us home with a ton of acronyms. Because we got a question from Hank from Tuscaloosa, and I think this one was for Basilica, maybe if I'm wrong. GMV was a measure mentioned here, but wasn't sure what is GMV and as you define it.
Yeah, so this is actually attributed revenue from creators, lower funnel affiliate creators within TikTok. We are using that as, exact attributed revenue.
That's great.
Dante, would you explain it differently?
No, I think it actually means gross merchandise value. Yeah, it was the North Star metric at Depop, and it's not at Weber. And I'm glad that I've moved beyond that because that has caused me headaches. GMV has caused me many a headache.
And that's tailored right to e-commerce brands that you can track the conversions, right? So that's unique to that. So if you're not coming from an e-com brand, like then that might not be as familiar. All right, so we are past time. Thank you to everyone for joining. If you have any questions or engagements coming back, and we'll be glad to talk again next time. So feel free to reach out to any of us. Thank you all for spending your Thursday, and we'll take